Imagine a war that didn't end in 1945. A war fought not in trenches, but in the dense ancient forests of northern Europe. This is the story of the Forest Brothers, one of the longest and most desperate guerrilla conflicts of the 20th century, a hidden chapter of the Cold War fought by the men and women of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. When World War II officially ended, for the Baltic states, one occupation simply replaced another. The Soviet Union, having driven out the Nazis, imposed its own brutal regime. But tens of thousands refused to submit. Soldiers, farmers, students, and even priests retreated into the woods they knew so well, taking up arms to fight for their freedom. They became the Miško broliai in Lithuania, Meža broliai in Latvia, and Metsa vened in Estonia, the Forest Brothers. Their world was one of secrecy and survival. They built intricate underground bunkers, called zemlyankas, often invisible from the surface. These weren't just simple dugouts. Some were complex structures with multiple rooms, ventilation systems, and hidden entrances. By day, they were ghosts. By night, they emerged to disrupt the Soviet occupation. They ambushed military convoys, sabotaged infrastructure, and targeted collaborators who enforced the new regime's oppressive policies. For the local population living in fear of deportations to Siberia, the Forest Brothers were symbols of hope, a defiant flicker of national sovereignty in the darkest of times. Life in the forest was incredibly harsh. Winters were brutal, with freezing temperatures and deep snow making survival a constant battle. Food was scarce, often supplied by sympathetic farmers who risked their own lives and families to help. Medical care was almost non-existent, with wounds often treated with traditional remedies or left to fester. The psychological toll was immense. Constant fear of discovery, betrayal, and the deep isolation of the forest wore down even the strongest spirits. Yet, they held on, fueled by a profound love for their homeland and the desperate hope that the West, America and Britain, would come to their aid. They listened to Western radio broadcasts, clinging to every word that suggested liberation was near. The partisans' tactics were classic guerrilla warfare. They knew the terrain intimately, the swamps, the thickets, the hidden trails. This knowledge gave them a crucial advantage over the Soviet security forces, the NKVD, and later the MGB. They operated in small mobile units, striking quickly and melting back into the forest before the enemy could mount an effective response. Their primary goal was to make the region ungovernable for the Soviets and to demonstrate that the spirit of their nations was not broken. They weren't just fighting a physical war. They were fighting a war for memory and identity, publishing underground newspapers and leaflets to counter Soviet propaganda and keep the dream of independence alive. However, the Soviets were relentless and ruthless. They deployed tens of thousands of troops and internal security forces to crush the resistance. Their methods were brutal. They implemented a strategy of collective punishment, where entire families and villages could be deported to the gulags for suspected collaboration with the partisans. They created special destruction battalions, often composed of local collaborators, to hunt the Forest Brothers. These units were infamous for their cruelty, often displaying the bodies of killed partisans in town squares as a terrifying warning to others. One of the most insidious and effective Soviet tactics was infiltration. The security services recruited agents and informers, turning neighbors against neighbors. They sent agents posing as partisans to join resistance groups, gather intelligence, and then betray them from within. This created an atmosphere of deep paranoia, where no one could be fully trusted. A friendly farmer offering food could be a patriot or a spy. A new face in a partisan group could be a hero or a traitor. This psychological warfare was just as devastating as the military operations. As the years passed and the 1940s turned into the 1950s, the promised help from the West never materialized. The Cold War had solidified, and the Baltic states were left behind the Iron Curtain. The hope that had sustained the Forest Brothers began to fade. The massive Soviet security apparatus, combined with forced collectivization that destroyed the rural support network, gradually strangled the movement. The partisans were hunted down, their bunkers discovered and their numbers dwindled. The fight became less about liberation and more about survival, a desperate last stand. Some of the most legendary figures of the resistance emerged during this period. In Lithuania, Jonas Žemaitis Vytautas unified the partisan movement and became its recognized leader, a virtual president of a nation under occupation, until his capture in 1953. In Estonia, Ants the Terrible Kaljurand became a folk hero, a real-life Robin Hood figure known for his daring raids. Each leader, each fighter, has a story of immense courage against impossible odds. They fought knowing they would likely die, but they chose to die as free people in their own land rather than live under tyranny. The last lone forest brother is believed to have been killed in action, as late as 1978. For decades, their story was buried by Soviet propaganda, which dismissed them as criminals and fascists. But the memory was kept alive in whispers, in secret family stories. When the Baltic states finally regained their independence in the early 1990s, the story of the Forest Brothers was reclaimed. They are now honored as national heroes, as patriots who sacrificed everything in the fight for the freedom their countries enjoy today. Their bunkers have been excavated and turned into memorials. Their stories are taught in schools, and their legacy serves as a powerful reminder that the fight for freedom is never truly over. Their struggle is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unbreakable desire of a people to be free. Thank you so much for watching. The story of the Forest Brothers is a vital piece of European history that deserves to be known. If you found this video meaningful, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more stories from the forgotten corners of history. We'll see you in the next one.